Hey, listeners, welcome to another episode. We're still going strong even through the summer. Sadly, Summer League is over with, but you know what? We're just going to keep the content, keep the stuff going to you. Joining me today, and well, welcoming him back in a very impressive studio, it looks like. Not ours. We don't have that kind of budget, but joining me is Glenn. Glenn is going to be talking with me first today on a special episode. Glenn, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm still trying to catch up on my rest a little bit. Vegas will do that to you. I've been home for 2 days now, so just trying to catch up on my rest. But it was a great trip. I was very happy that I was able to talk my twin brother into being out there with me. So a lot of fun to go out with your brother and catch some NBA games and do a little bit of other Vegas stuff too, but not a whole lot.
Man, I have become jealous just like looking at, or at least following your Twitter feed. You're talking about all this stuff going on in Vegas now. Normal people would call it boring summer league stuff, but I'm like, no, Glenn's in the thick of the action. This is fun. How was Vegas?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you get 8 to 10 games a day, so you can sit there from 1 p.m. local time all the way to about 11 p.m. local time and just watch basketball all day long, and then you go back to your hotel, go to sleep, and come back the next day. Um, a lot of the folks that are there are more kind of insiders, if you will, like insider media types. And you can tell that they're there partying because they don't show back up until about 5 or 6 o'clock the next day and those sorts of things. So it's sort of like their one time to all be together in the same place. So you see that dynamic. Um, but I'm probably a little older than a lot of them. I've been to Vegas 30 times in my life. Sometimes just a quick bounce in to be part of a conference of some sort, other times to do other things, but I've kind of had the entire Vegas experience. So I mainly stuck to the basketball activities, but there's certainly plenty of other things to do should you want to.
So, did you happen to like run into any players, coaches, heck, bloggers while you were out there?
Oh my gosh. I mean, you see a lot of people. You walk up and say hello to people. Who might some of the folks? I mean, it's funny. I was ended up sitting right behind Brent Berry, one
Really?
game. Yeah, and then sitting right next to him was Manu Ginobili's brother, who was over here as a summer league assistant coach with the Spurs. And it's funny because I was talking to a younger guy next to me, and I was like, "You know who that is?" He goes, "No." I said, "That's Brent Berry." He goes, "Oh, Bones." And I said, "Do you know who's sitting next to him?" And I explained it to him. So there are situations like that all the time. David Griffin, the former Cavs GM, was there, and he was part of a NBA
What?
leadership program. Mark Cuban came in to watch his team play. One game, James Harden and Chris Paul was there to watch their guys play, and they would try to kind of manage the autographs during quarter breaks or half times and those sorts of things. I'm going to let the kids get. I'm not going to get in the line for an autograph. That's not what I'm there for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're just interested in doing NBA celebrity watching, there's not a better opportunity to do that than an NBA summer league.
Yeah, it looked fun just in that sense. So, did you happen to catch?
Then LeBron came
Oh,
to see Lonzo play, and that was interesting to see the interactions between Lakers fans who were hoping that LeBron's going to be on his team next year. So that was an interesting game to be attending as well.
you didn't run into LeVar Ball, did you?
I did not. He was. I don't think he showed up after his son's first game. As folks might recall, he Lonzo had a very rough first game, and they constantly showed Levar on. I guess we're still calling it the jumbotron. I don't know, but what we used to call the jumbotron. And every time Lonzo would miss a shot, they'd show Levar, and that was not helping Lonzo at all. It just seemed like to be putting more pressure on him. But certainly, as the summer league games progressed, Lonzo got better. He played up and down, but the only time I saw Levar there was on the jumbotron in the one game the first game that they played that I attended. But he was
Very.
bigger than life. He was a huge personality in that building, no doubt about that.
Man, this is fascinating. I, for one, definitely want to. I think next year you kind of convinced me with your trip out there, listening to you talk, listening to Brad talk. You guys have convinced me. Next year, I'm just going to take some time off work and reserve a hotel What's the move? Did you go find a hotel? Did you do Airbnb when you got there? Uh, I got to know for next year and for the fans that want to try to take this trip next year.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, in terms of hotels, Vegas is one of the more affordable kind of vacation
Huh.
destination spot because they intend to get so much money from you also through the gambling and through your meals are super expensive if you eat in the restaurants that are in the bigger hotels. I happen to be a so my path was I'm a because of my corporate travel, I'm a huge Starwood status guy, so I was able to kind of get a blend of points and dollars to get into the W hotel, which is one of the nicer hotels on the strip. Yeah, it's like 3.5 miles away. So if you have the strategy of staying close enough to walk, just realize it is hot as hell. And even like an eighth of a mile, eighth of a mile or just under a 1 mile walk can be not fun at all. So I actually almost stayed on the opposite end of the strip just to make sure I didn't talk myself into walking down there.
Nice.
The lifts are very affordable down there. But I mean I've never really done Airbnb because I get so much usage in the loyalty programs through my other travel that's what works for me. But I would say explore all options and kind of see what works for you.
Man, see, I'm gonna have to come on another podcast and talk about the credit card game out there since you're talking about us um, with the
Oh,
hotels.
yeah, another thing I should say
So,
is that if you want to be where all the NBA media, all the NBA players, all the NBA celebrities are, NBA Central is at the Palms Hotel. And so if you want
Palms.
yeah, if you want maximum kind of bump into NBA people constantly, that's where you want to be. But I never even looked at prices there because I just have such a commitment to maximizing my loyalty programs. But
Hey,
you
that's how
can
you
talk
do
to
it.
others about the Palms. Yeah. So if you want to be where it's all at, the Palms, that's where you want to be.
Yeah, the W's not even paying us, and Clint's out here advertising for it. No. Fun fact for everybody out there: I used to work at the W when I was in college, and we will keep it at that, and I will save that for another podcast. But just funny hearing that. Okay, so you saw some of the games. Did you have any particular interesting games that you saw? I remember tweeting back and forth with you when Fultz was out there playing for the 76ers. Did you have any other interesting experiences before we get to the Hawks?
Well, I mean, certainly Lonzo was an experience for sure. His passing skills are absolutely crazy. I remember an inbound pass where he got the ball. He must have been 5 feet from his own baseline, and he just like Tom Brady's it all the way to the other end of the court. Perfect pass for a layup for his guy. So he's a threat to create a shot from anywhere on the court. He has the ball. His shooting is an issue. His athleticism is probably not quite what some people expect it to be, given all the kind of hype around him. But
Yeah.
watching him distribute the ball certainly is uh, really amazing. Jason Tatum, a lot of fun. He has so many different uh, tools in his tool belt in terms of all the different things he can do offensively. Um, there was a lot of talk in the Hawks community around Kyle Kuzma, who got drafted by the Lakers late in the first round. He played really well. It's hard to kind of go over all of them, but there were guys that were disappointments. There were Donovan Mitchell looks like a really great player. He got taken 13th by Utah. Um, so so yeah, I mean those you tried to go get around and see the guys that you wanted to see, but me being the NBA nerd that I am, I was also super interested in seeing Malik Beasley, who was a first or second round draft pick by Denver last year that didn't play at all, and doesn't look like he's lined up to play this year unless they move Will Barton. But like I was like, wow, Malik Beasley looks like 85% of what Donovan Mitchell is, and he needs to play for someone. So you got games going on in two buildings that are starting 30 to 45 minutes apart, and you're just trying to watch the schedule and think, oh, I haven't seen this guy play yet, so I need to run over to the other venue and see that guy play. Um, but this draft class was so good that
Yeah.
there was never a time slot where you were like, oh, both of these games are boring. You wanted to see Bam Adebayo play, run over there to see him play. You know, Dennis Smith Jr. is playing in the other venue. Run over there and see Dennis Smith Jr. and the Darian Fox. So
Yeah.
this draft class was so good that it did make this specific summer league an even higher quality than probably normal.
So how is it set up? Are there two different courts while you're there?
Yeah, and they're it's basically one facility, if you will, and they're basically the court where the UNLV team plays that holds eight up to 18,000 people. And on the weekends when the Lakers were playing, it was absolutely full. It felt just like a Lakers home game, I would imagine it to feel.
Oh
And
boy.
then basically there's what's generally considered probably the UNLV practice court, just that's attached to it. But I think it holds about 2,500 people. But the interesting thing about that court is if you want to network, that's the that's the building you want to be in, because in the building that holds 18,000 people, the media is far, far, far more removed from the general seating. But basically, in the smaller court, they can't keep anyone from anyone. So that's like when I was sitting right behind Brent Berry and Manu's brother. That's when I would sit down and look and go, "Oh, Darvin Ham just walked in and sat down two seats for me." That venue is so small that the likelihood of bumping into someone that might be interesting to say hi to or hello, or if you're an autograph seeker, that sort of thing. That's the building you want to be in for more kind of contact, if you will, with people.
All right, so you hear it here. If you guys catch me online next year as crazed 30-year-old shoving kids out of the way to get an autograph, it's because Glenn encouraged me to go to the smaller court. That is really neat. Something interesting I did see when you're talking about the talent for this year's draft classes, it seemed that a lot of the press and recognition and just buzz that you heard was from this year's rookie class opposed to the guys in the summer league that are second years. Did that seem to be the case? Like, did this year overall seem to be better in that
Yeah,
sense?
I mean, for Hawks fans, certainly, I think that there was a balance of, are Torian and DeAndre Bembry better? And also, who's this new guy, John Collins? How good is he? But I think overall, it's just kind of like the general concept and across life is the new shiny things are what people are most interested in. It's just
Yeah,
like
it's true.
it was Lonzo, it was Markel until they got hurt, it was Tatum. Dennis Smith Jr. started to gain in popularity across the week as well. Darian Fox, people were excited about that. Uh, Justin Jackson, yeah, those sorts of things. But like for the Suns, they had Marquise Chris and Dragon Bender back as well, and it was that Suns team. You'd think with all of those new draft picks for the last 2 years would have been one of the better teams, but they're actually one of the worst teams. But yeah, I mean, you can get so much more uh, watching someone play in person than you can on TV, and especially when you're in a setting when they're playing in a small gym where you can hear everything any coach is saying, you can hear everything any player is saying, those sorts of things. It's just you can extract so much more from it if you're oriented to kind of be interested in that type of thing. You can certainly get that.
Oh, that is interesting.
But
So,
but but they always play the Lakers in either the late game in the big gym or the second the late game in the big gym, and they definitely lined them up because they played the Sixers and the Celtics on the weekend, and then they played the Kings on the Monday. So that was the one that could have been Lonzo versus Fox, which was in college. Fox tore up Lonzo, but Lonzo ended up not playing that game. So they certainly kind of pushed the big fan base or the high profile teams into the primetime slots. And of course, that means the Hawks played in the smaller gym every time, which was just fine with me.
well, it's just, man, the whole thing sounds exciting.
It's a
So
lot of
you
fun.
just pay for one day and you can just stay in there the whole time.
Yeah, you can like I want to say around $35, and you can stay in there all day long, or you can come and go. The food inside the venue is pretty bad. So my strategy was to have big breakfast before I leave, have a protein bar, and then try to last out to the last game, and then go back and find some reasonably priced place to have a good meal. So you don't at a most you want to have eat one meal in the venue because the food's pretty awful.
Well, the good thing about all that is the games fly by. So if
They
your
do.
team is coming up, At least the Hawks games, those games are like what, an hour long? It felt like they didn't seem to be very long.
It does go quick. They're only 10-minute quarters, so 40 minutes in all. Shortened
Yeah, no,
the timeouts for 75 seconds instead of 2 full minutes. You only got 1 20-second timeout, I think, per half, and that wasn't always used. And then because they stagger the games, there's always a game in progress. Once you're in the building, there's always a game in progress. You'll never find a time where there's not a game in progress. So that makes it go really fast.
all right. Well, we are a Hawks podcast, so let's go on and talk about Atlanta real quick.
Sure.
Some of the I know one guy that impressed was DeAndre Bembry, but was there anybody else besides the summer league folk hero that I'm going to talk about in a minute? Was there any other guy that kind of impressed you out there?
No, so I was interested. I would have been interested to see how Tyler Dorsey looked had he not gotten injured. He only played 37 minutes and never really kind of found his footing. So not much to take away from that. We could talk about John Collins in a second. Both of the point guards, Josh Majette and Bryce Cotton. That last game, he kind of found his offensive game. But if you watch them play, like especially in a closed setting, their job was basically just to dribble the ball up the court and give it to Torian or DeAndre, and then go run and
Yeah,
in the corner. So they were basically instructed to not really do anything offensively, but just to create space for the other guys. Um, Isaiah Courtenay finally looked like a competent basketball player the last game.
yeah.
His,
Go figure. I was going to say,
yeah,
go figure the game I wasn't looking at.
Yeah,
He
and
did.
he still didn't shoot the ball well, but he had like I think 7 rebounds and 6 assists, and was just very active defensively. So he finally had something to show. Alpha Kaba, the guy that was taken in the 60th spot, he looked like an interesting player. He was impressive in that on the defense end of the court, he knew right where to be to start a possession, and he was pretty solid in pick and roll coverage. Like any young guy, sometimes he loses awareness of what's behind him when he's kind of helping on the high pick and roll. But overall, he looked like he knew what he was doing. On offense, you could tell that the team Megalinks that he plays with in Serbia plays a much slower pace, so he struggled a little bit to keep up, just in terms of having like the foot speed to keep up at the pace that the Hawks wanted to play at. Um, but he looked like he knew what to do in the pick. Once they got established in the half court, he looked like that he knew what to do in the pick and roll. Was a pretty good roll guy. If he caught the ball, he generally knew whether he was in a dribble handoff situation or if he should face up and look at the basket and look to create some other action. So he looked just like competent in terms of knowing what he should be doing, but he has the ways to go in terms of kind of becoming potentially a real NBA player. And then Richard Solomon was a guy that played for the Salt Lake Stars, I think, last year. And
Hmm.
what I wrote was that his experience in the Quinn Snyder system, which is basically the Bud system, was that he was there to help John Collins. Richard Solomon looks awesome when the ball's not in his hands. Great rebounder,
Oh,
great
okay.
defender. You get put the ball in his hands, and he looks like the worst basketball player you've ever seen. So pretty much pretty big divide on how good he looks. And then Trent Lockett kind of had a breakout game that last game. He had a big fourth quarter. I wrote about it a little bit, but he was super active in the fourth quarter in that last game that they played. And Diamond Stone,
There we go. The name.
yes. So yeah, he's big and he has good ball skills. He can dribble, he can shoot. He doesn't look like he's naturally very assertive or engaged. He looks like a guy that, if left to his own devices, he'll just kind of float through a game and just kind of is happy to kind of be in the background. And oh, if the ball comes to me, I'll do a post or I'll face up and shoot a shot. But if the ball doesn't come to me, that's fine. But he's the guy that the coaches were yelling at him constantly. If I on defense, he would just kind of stand without a posture, and you'd hear Charles Lee yell, "Hands, Diamond, hands, hands!" And I joked with Brad that I was hearing that in my sleep one night because they was constantly yelling, "Get your hands up!" and cut down a passing lane. So if he's going to be anything, someone's going to have to coach him into being a much more engaged and much more proactive basketball player. But if you look at what he can do with the ball as a big guy, it's a good starting point, but mentally he has a long way to come to kind of potentially be anything real.
Well, the thing with Summer League is it's kind of like a glorified pickup game. So hopefully, you know, as coaching improves, and obviously, I don't expect Diamond Stone to be a heavy part of a rotation or heck in the rotation period. So, that's something to work on, I guess.
Yeah, I just he looks to me like a guy that he's so big and his ball skills are so good. It would kind of be a waste if he didn't become something eventually. Now the Hawks only have him under contract 1 year, so it's not like they can just let him play at Erie all year long
Yeah.
because they won't have any idea if he has any real NBA value or not. So he's going to have to play, I don't know, 500 minutes this year at some point, just to get a read on whether he's worth investing in beyond this year.
So, one player that was kind of controversial, I saw good and both bad from people. Torrin Prince, the only really guy out there for the Hawks that actually has NBA experience. I saw people kind of like down on him because of his shooting percentages. But if you don't look at that or whatever, what did you make of Torrin Prince during his time in summer league?
Yeah, so I would say he definitely did not get the results that most people were looking for. He was a little turnover prone. He wasn't making as many of his shots as you would have liked to see. A couple of things that I could see in person that probably you were less likely to see on TV. He had a lot of difficulty keeping his hands dry. He was constantly wiping his hands, and in that environment where it's so warm, I don't know if there was just something different in the environment that caused him to kind of. I didn't see other guys struggling with it, but he was always like constantly wiping his hands on his shorts, trying to get his hands dry. And the turnovers that he had, it wasn't like they were like boneheaded passes straight into a defender who's in the passing lane. It would be, oh, he just barely dribbled it off his foot, or what have you. And the other thing is that he and DeAndre were definitely being allowed to create in the pick and roll as the ball handler a ton, and and it looked to me like they were both encouraged to go as fast as you possibly can. And because DeAndre's a guard, he's done a lot more ball handling in his past, and that's going to be a more natural thing for him to acclimate to. Where Prince has played almost exclusive as a forward his entire career, and so he would have further to go to be able to play that fast. So he looked like he was speeding himself up to go as fast as he could. Whatever
Yeah.
the results were less important. But what I would say as an evaluator is his processes and his decision making all looked absolutely fine. I
Yeah.
didn't see anything wrong with the way he read a pick and roll. Once he made the read, what he was doing with the ball, whether it was a pass or attacking off the dribble, all of his processes looked 100% fine, and all of his decision making looked fine. It's just a matter of getting used to that type of activity, which he did very little of last year. He almost always just stood in the corner as a spacer last year, right?
Yes.
Really, really new to him. When DeAndre played in the D League last year, he was one of the primary ball handlers. So, again, it should not really be a surprise to anyone that DeAndre handled that action better than Prince did because he's been getting opportunities to do that all along. Where this is really, really new to Prince. And one thing I said was that okay, so if what we find from this is that Prince isn't going to be able to ever be a guy that can run like 15 pick and rolls a game, that's fine. He can still going to be a good player even if he can't do that. That's a little bit like the icing on the cake with him. He's
Yeah.
so good. He's so good defensively. He's so good in transition on offense. He can. I think he's fully capable of being. He was top five at his position in defensive real plus minus last year already. And so if he can run 5 to 10 pick and rolls a game and make good decisions with the ball and be a good secondary creator, then that's just it's kind of icing on the cake. But yeah, so the results weren't there for him. It was funny because there was a couple of guys sitting behind me one game he played where he struggled, and they were college basketball fans. They had come to see a specific player that went to the college that they root for, and they were kind of laughing at Torian. One time he had a double dribble in the backcourt, another time he couldn't quite finish at the rim. And then I wanted to turn around and go, "Do you guys know how freaking good this guy is?" You're sitting here laughing at him. You came to watch a guy that is not even doesn't even have an NBA contract, and you're laughing at this guy. So it was kind of I was like, I'll leave them to themselves, but but
You
yeah,
should have turned around. You should have turned around, man. No, I'm kidding.
yeah. So yeah, I would say that he. But what I liked about Turian is that he never got frustrated. He never stopped
Yeah.
playing defense. He never stopped trying to do what he was asked to do. If for example he had three possessions in a row that were all three turnovers, when the ball came to him, it wasn't like he didn't want the ball anymore. He took the ball and he did what he was supposed to do. And so mentally, it looks like, hey, let's just continue the process and let's see how far we can get you as a secondary creator. The further we can get you, the more value you have, the more you're going to help us. If we can't get you all the way as far as maybe someone would have hoped, that's fine. He has a ton of other value on this team.
Yeah. And I don't know. It seemed to me like outside of, like you said, the turnovers, it just seemed like he was making the right decisions for everything. And you you saw him playing defense in the summer league, which is a thing. But the thing is that I had to tell people, despite his troubles, is he's not going to be really handling the ball again next year. He's not the point guard of the team. Let alone he might be like the third or fourth option, if anything, if you're talking about who to run through. But anywho,
Absolutely. The thing is to make him the best secondary creator you can, because that's what's going to maximize his value on the team. Um, but if he's never a guy that you're going to run your primary offense through on a second unit, even for example, he's still a plus plus player. The one thing I would say with Bembry is that he looks so much stronger than he looked last year. His core,
nice. Yes.
he is ripped, and his core. You can see there's certain movements in basketball, like when you have to twist at the rim to finish, where you can see whether a guy has core strength or not. His core strength looks so good. He's finishing at the rim well. And also the thing that was holding him back in terms of his three-point shooting to me, his shot need to be refined a little bit. But if you have core strength, that just allows you to be that much smoother with the rest of your. You don't have to use the strength from like your forearms to get the ball from three-point range. It's going to be much cleaner, and his three-point shot looked better. He only made one of what, like 18 last year in the NBA season or something like that.
Yeah.
Shot the ball from three and above the break, and he was like a sub 50% shooter at the free throw line, and he only missed two free throws, I believe, there. So the shot looks a lot better, and he looks so much stronger. He looks so good. I mean, you have to be careful about how you react to what something you see him in summer league, but
Yeah.
I was like, once I saw him play, I was like, okay, I don't want the Hawks to sign another wing if it means he's going to play in front of Bembry, because given where the Hawks are with their roster, they need to figure out what he is and he needs to play next year.
Yeah, looking at the summer league, and like you say, you can't take too much away from it. But to me, it just seemed like with the decisions that Prince was doing, because there was a couple where he would get the ball and he would attack at the right instance and make the exact correct pass for an easy layup for one of the bigs. And I'm kind of like, okay, he knows what he's doing out here. And there were times with Bembry where I'm just kind of like, these two guys are clearly far and away the best guys out here. Although, like, you can't really tell because they're not, scoring. But those are the only two really playing defense, the only ones jumping and getting in the way in passing lanes. And I was like, okay, all right. I like what I see here.
Yeah,
And
you could tell they're both real NBA players.
yeah, compared to everybody else. You know, they didn't have the fancy or the big scoring numbers like, a lot of fans would see. But there were times when I was like, okay, they're making amazing passes right now. They're actually playing defense, which is something you can't really say for a lot of guys. But yeah. But speaking of good players, and you're talking about the new shiny thing, there's a player for the Atlanta Hawks in summer league who became like a kind of a folk legend, like a folk hero. I say this because I would turn on NBA.com or I'd go to whatever NBA site and I would just see this player with dunks on there on the website. I'm like, huh? A Hawks player on the front page? How did this happen? Yes, I'm talking about, for everyone listening, the rookie John Collins. I didn't know he had that kind of athleticism, was one thing I really noted. And I also noted he was actually kind of really smart and efficient. What did you see with John Collins?
Yeah, so I went in with uh kind of, I didn't really know what my expectations should be going in. So I wrote the draft profile that, so Brad and Patrick and I were basically all writing the draft profiles. And I wrote John Collins, and I wrote what I saw was that he's a terrible defender in college. He is a turnover machine in college. He struggled each year to get even 10 assists on the whole season. both of his seasons in college. He was super foul prone. And for his height, he's not super long. He's only like a +2 or so in terms of height and wingspan. But he is in person, he is way more bouncy than I expected. He is. It was even more noticeable in his rebounding game than his dunking game. Of course, the dunk is going to be the highlight that everybody sees kind of over and over and over. But
Yeah.
when a shot goes up, he's the first guy to go get in position to get the rebound, and he's grabbing the ball at the top of the block, at the top of the square, and grabbing the. And I mean, he could out jump everyone on the court every second he was on the court. There's no doubt about that. He has great rebounding instincts. And when I wrote up the piece for Peachtree Hoops about kind of what I'm looking for from each player in summer league, I had said if he can come away with a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, because he was like close to 1-to-4 in college, which is awful. But
Yeah.
he had 5 assists and 5 turnovers, and he probably had 4 or 5 other should have been assists if guys would have kind of finished bunnies and those sorts of things. But what surprised me was that in college, I guess he was instructed to do this, and I know Danny Manning, as coach, made some comments about it. But basically, when he got the ball, it was him in the basket, and that was all that existed in college when he got the ball. And he was, and so when they drafted Collins, I was like, this doesn't really kind of line up in terms of philosophy for me because the Hawks prioritize ball movement and ball sharing and kind of a meritocracy. And Collins in college got the ball and ignored all of his other four teammates and just went through as many defenders as he had to get to the rim. Um, but man, he did what he was supposed to do with the ball every single time he got the ball. I remember one time he caught it in the post, and no one was moving, and he was like, "Somebody cut," and it was like I was impressed because he was one on the low post, and instead of his instinct being, "Oh, I got my man one on one on the low post," it was like he realized that that's like an 80% play for good low post players. He at least wanted to see if one cutter could cut and get a layup at the rim before he went and took his offensive action. So when they ran that high pick and roll, if he got the ball, he knew whether to look for his shot or just give it back to the guard and reset the pick. So I was just his IQ. I was super impressed with. Um, Also, just his response to instructions coming off the bench, like if Charles Lee, who was the head coach, was calling for a screen for Ryan, like a high pick and roll for Ryan Kelly.
Yeah.
I was impressed because if John Collins would stand in the key just long enough for Kelly to run to the baseline, and as soon as Kelly started, and he would like stress the defender there, like he would like act like he was gonna put his body on him, and once Kelly hit the baseline and started coming up, then he would roll with perfect precision to the rim and would stress the backside of the defense so that the point guard and Kelly and the high pick and roll would have all the space that they needed. So I mean, he in very minor ways, he was always looking for ways to help a teammate, even when he was not in the primary action. And also, I remember one time they were late in the game. They were trying to create pressure to create a turnover because they were down by 10 points or so inside 3 minutes. And everybody else was just kind of running back to their natural spots. And John Collins looked back at his teammates and said, "Push, push, push, get up here." And he was the first guy to kind of be vocal about, hey, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So his on court leadership, his awareness, his attention to detail were just incredible. And I really didn't expect that based upon what I saw in him in college. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop visualizing for this guy for a minute and see what kind of questions you have.
Well, something, no, it's perfectly fine. You saw it in person, so I'm getting all the small things I didn't hear, like, the coaches yelling and everything. But what I did see on camera is, outside of the his attempt to dunk on everybody, which was, just an added bonus. But
Yeah.
he just seemed really efficient and strong for his size, because there were times where he would just get the ball and whatever it was, he seemed to have a good finish, whether it be a dunk or whether it be a layup. Just like, wow, he's somehow getting himself into position, for a move to like finish at the basket, or he would take like a mid-range jumper or do some sort of funky move mid-range to free himself up. And I'm like, wow, he's just efficient. I could definitely see why his PER rating was kind of high if he was doing that against college kids. Now, again, this is the summer league, and it'll be interesting to see how he does against like real athletes, because there was who's the guy he was just tormenting, the guy Dallas, not Dallas, Chicago drafted. Is
Oh,
that caught?
Larry Marketing.
Yeah, did they? Yeah, I believe it was Markin. Somebody he was just tormenting one day, where it just seemed like he could get a rebound. He could rebound at will and score at will whenever he wanted. So it's gonna be interesting to see when it's not rookies and actual athletes that he goes against. But I was very impressed just because, in the sense of one, the decision making, and two, just his efficiency. The dunks are something else, though. But how did he look on defense?
He has
Would you
a
say?
long so he has a long way to go on defense in terms of the techniques. He certainly doesn't have the fundamentals down there. But what the thing that encourages you is that the sense of urgency was always there. He was always trying to do the right thing, and he was always 100. He seemed always 100% invested in doing the right thing. He was always communicating, whether he was communicating the right thing or the wrong thing, but he was always talking to the guard in front of him. Like any big guy, the thing that they struggle with defensively when they're defending the high pick and roll is they lose track of what's going on behind them. Um, but his ability to recover was impressive. But I mean, it's no surprise that he has a long, long way to go defensively. But if you could start with a like A plus sense of urgency and A plus effort to communicate with your teammates and be in the right space, and it was
Yes.
funny. It was funny because after one defensive possession, there was a foul called or something, and he had just defended a pick and roll, and the officials were communicating about where to inbound the ball because I don't know if people know, but in summer league they try out these different rule changes, and the officials are like, "Oh, where are we inbounding the ball? This and that." You know, they're confused. And he actually ran over to the bench and said, "Coach, did I do that right or did I do that wrong?" It's like, oh, he didn't even wait till like a timeout to see feedback. He had just done it, and he ran over and was like, "Did I do that right? I don't know. I have no idea if I did that right." So you could see the effort and the engagement and the commitment, but he's a pretty bad defender, kind of out of the box right now. But that shouldn't be surprising for any rookie, especially the big guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, he's a rookie, and he's only 19, which is surprising to me. Just just wow. But something to be excited for, Hawks. At least with the young guys.
Yeah,
They're
with I think it's very encouraging that they brought Muscala back because it's important. I think that they have one guy who's been in the system for 3 years and can kind of be that mentor because they have Plumlee now, they have Deadman now. Those guys aren't going to really be very helpful. I mean, they're going to be somewhat helpful to Collins, but in terms of how to play that spot in this system, it's really, really I think valuable for Collins that Muscala is going to come back.
Yeah, well, next year they might not win as much games as previous years. That's just my thought. But
They won't
personally, I think
win.
that personally, with just watching the young guys, I think it'll be more exciting for me as a fan, just to watch them, even if they lose. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm excited for the year. I'm
I
happy for the year. They're probably gonna be really bad, but I'm really excited just to see the young guys out there
yeah,
improve.
yeah, I mean, it's a totally different experience because I think what most Hawks fans, whether you thought they should have traded Millsap or Horford, we could relitigate all of that. I don't think there's any value in doing that. But the reality is the last 3 years we've seen a good team be good, but not really be able to get over the hump. And they were profiled as a team age wise and experiences wise that they were what they were ever going to be and they were never going to accomplish more than that. I think this year we can go back to a place where okay, they're young and they're going to make mistakes and they're probably not going to win as much. um, but now we're starting at kind of a new trajectory from a new point, right? And you can kind of root for that trajectory to go well and to kind of be able to see indications that these young guys could turn into real NBA players and could potentially be the core of the next good Hawks team. Maybe be 2 or 3 years down the road, but it's still kind of
Yeah.
exciting. It's exciting to see a core that looks like they can kind of come together and start a trajectory from a a little bit of a low point, but start a trajectory that can start getting you excited again.
Oh yes. Now talk about bringing back Muscala. In the news, also they brought back Ursan Ilyasova, returning to the Hawks at power forward. A very cheap deal, so they got a good value on that. What do you think of Ilyasova returning?
I think it's a great move. Ilyasova hasn't spent a ton of time in the Hawks system, but he played well. He's a really smart player. He plays
Yeah,
well. He's a savvy player. He's a good enough shooter to be a little offer a little bit of a stretchiness at that position to give Dennis and others the room to operate. I think the primary value is I don't think you would want John Collins to play starters minutes this year.
Yeah.
I don't think you want him super far from that. But I would be thrilled if, let's say, Ursan played 24 minutes a game and Collins played 24 minutes a game. If they just split that position right down the middle. Now, obviously, Collins is going to play some at the five at some point in the future, so you want to be able to kind of play up or down based upon matchups. Um,
Yes.
but I think it basically kind of concept at the highest level. If you could say Ursan, you're getting half the minutes, Collins, you're getting half the minutes. I think that's a perfect situation for Collins because Ursan is going to play like a professional. He's going to handle all of his defensive responsibilities. He's going to know where to be. And so in crunch time, if you have a chance to win a game, maybe you play Ursan the last 4 minutes of the game and try to get that win. If you're down 20, maybe you sit Ursan down and give Collins the last 4 minutes to play. Or if Collins has a flash where he's playing well at the five, maybe you let them play together. But I like the fact that there's a professional that's going to share the possession with an experienced professional that's going to share the position with him, which means I
Yeah.
just eliminates a lot of what could be pressure on Collins' rookie year. I think it allows for just the right amount of play for Collins. And the other thing is that if one of the things that we're hoping for is for Bud to stick around and stay committed to this leadership configuration, that Schlenk getting him a few veterans to work with is something I think is going to make Bud a little bit happier than only having rookies or second year guys to play with. So I think it helps give Bud a little bit more of what he's looking for too, which is in the long run, hopefully a good thing.
Yes. Now, yes, the shape up of the team is going to be good. I was happy for the Muscala deal, much like how you said, kind of like how you're saying with Ursan, but I was happy with the Muscala deal because it's like, hey, another guy that knows the system, which is exactly what you said. Now, something interesting before we take a break. We just got Woj bombed. I'm not sure if you know this.
I don't know this. I'm
So
100% focused on the podcast. Well, Josh, I don't know about you.
hey,
I
hey,
have all
hey,
my other
hey,
windows.
so hey, hey, I'm glad someone
their butts last. You saved their butts last time because you were watching, and then the Dwight trade happened last time. So I'm not. I'm giving you a hard time for fun.
hey, somebody
So what happened?
of one, I'm glad that you're focused. That's why we keep bringing you back. But apparently, Woj is saying sources after week-long talks with Atlanta backing out to offer Mo Spates an offer. So I guess he just said that Atlanta just backed out from Mo Spates coming to Atlanta, which that's news to me. Have you heard anything about that before?
That would shock me because they basically have. Hi, are they full in the front court now? They got Plumlee, Muscala, Dedman, Collins, Ilyasova. You usually carry 5 or 6, but in a way, it doesn't surprise me because Spates played with Golden State for a few years when Schlenk was there in Golden State. So there's
Yeah,
uh, that relationship. On the other hand, the Hawks don't have enough perimeter shooting, and the one thing Mo is 100% happy to do is bomb away from 3-point range, but he's really become a pretty terrible defensive player at this point. Um, so I guess that sounds like a player that Bud wouldn't necessarily enjoy. But at the same time, the Hawks don't have enough perimeter shooting. They were the third worst offense in the league last year. But even if you look at what Spates contributed to that year, the Warriors' first championship season, he's regressed so much defensively and so much in terms of his ability since then that I I mean, if that meant that they were going to move on from Plumlee faster, I don't know that enhances their position with moving Plumlee if they want to move Plumlee. I think Plumlee's going to play, but yeah, I don't. So much of that is like, is that the agent putting that out? That we were that close, just trying to develop a
yeah,
market for its player. You know what I mean? By acting like that, he almost got an offer, and the Hawks are one of the last teams with really any kind of cap space at all, and the guys who are
yeah,
left on the market right now are kind of screwed. So I don't know.
yeah. Well, I encourage everybody. There was a podcast that came out, I want to say like a week ago, where Kent Bazemore's agent was talking, and he kind of went through all the stuff that agents do and how to get the popularity out there. It's kind of like how you say when they say source is talking, well, an agent will just like, even if they call them to say, hey, how are you doing, or hey, is so and so a free agent, like not even negotiations, but an agent will throw a team out there just to make it seem like their guy's a hot commodity to try to get the price up. So yeah, you could be right on. You're probably right on that, which is
Yeah, and the media,
interesting.
those handful of guys like Woj and Shams and David Aldridge, those newsbreakers, they have to play ball. So if an agent says, "Hey, will you report that these 5 teams are interested in my guy?" Um, if they say no, 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 then they're never going to get that hot lead. So they have to kind of play ball and put some noise out there for those agents when the agents want the noise out there, so they can be maybe the first in line to get the real news when it's ready to break. So it's kind of a racket, but at the same time, it's all fun to track all of this, and that half of it's fake and half of it's the other half is probably 25% manipulated or not or what have you. But it's certainly um, it's something that makes the dead time in the summer a little bit more interesting as a Navy fan, at least. So I'm not going to complain too much.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna have a lot of that coming up. Well, everybody, we're about to take a break, and when we come back to the break, we will have another special guest. Hint: he has done a podcast before for the Hawks on Peachtree Hoops, but I personally have never talked to him yet. So we will see when we return. And